So, the Homestuck animated pilot is finally here, and I'm here to share some of my thoughts about it. I've only been a fan of Homestuck for about 3 years now, but I'm in love with this stupid comic. I've always feared I missed the boat on Homestuck, considering I started reading it so long after it came out. But seeing the fandom still alive and thriving, even more so now that the pilot has come out, is great. Many new fans are coming around, and Homestuck will likely have a huge fandom resurgence. The consequences of that are currently unknown, but I'm sure we'll see some new infamous fandom incidents before long, unfortunately. Although I could not wait for its release, the pilot was actually a bit of a disappointment in my opinion. But before I go into this, I would like to say that we cannot judge too harshly, as this is just the pilot. It's a proof of concept in that a first episode will likely be made later down the line, provided the pilot gets the support and funding the creators need to continue the series. There will also be a shit ton of nitpicking happening in this video. Not everything I talk about is an unforgivable writing sin. Some might just be things that bother me a bit. Moving on now. The main issue I felt was that the pacing was off. It felt like things were happening much faster than they should. In the source material, a large point of complaint for new readers is how long it takes to start playing Spurb and meet the trolls, the fan-favorite characters. Although the first act takes forever and makes some people quit reading, I feel like it gives you a chance to better meet and introduce yourselves with the characters. Learning what their day-to-day lives are like before they enter the game is important and helps you gain further context to their later actions. I feel that this is missing in the pilot, and you're expected to already know the characters. For example, John messing around with his Silodex was skipped out on until later during the strife with his father, in which the smoke pellets are ejected. Those moments of him messing up, breaking things, and embarrassing himself in the comic were funny and added to the world building. Same with the cakes. Instead of complaining to his friends about being left so many baked goods, he just finds them all and stacks them without any care, and very little attention is given to it. I do understand why it was written this way, though, as many of the people watching the pilot are already fans of the comic. But we also have to consider the new fans that are going to be interacting with Homestuck for the very first time. Secondly, I think the fact that they have phones was not a good writing choice. In the early comic, there are 2 different times where the kids not having phones is important to the story, even in small ways. The first is John not being able to see his friends' messages. He has to return to his computer to read their texts. He later takes his dad's PDA from the kitchen and downloads PusterChum on there for easier communication. Secondly, when Rose loses internet, this leads her to go into the observatory for a better internet connection. While up there, her laptop dies, and this causes her to go to Jasper's mausoleum for the generator to charge her device. These small plot points progress the story and give more background information about Rose's family. This doesn't make much sense with both a phone and a laptop, because when it dies, she could just use the other. To say that both died is a bit of a stretch. While this could also be done with only a phone, this brings up my next point about phones, which is an inconsistency of when the pilot takes place. While the original comic takes place in 2009 onwards, when it was written, it's unknown what year the pilot is meant to be in. They use modern slang like mid and aura, but the phones they're using are flip phones. I actually know a few people their age that do have flip phones nowadays, but it's pretty rare and due to special circumstances usually. If the pilot were to take place in modern time, I could maybe see Jade having an old flip phone due to limited technology because she lives in the middle of nowhere, but it doesn't really work for any of the others. The other changes in technology usage, though, like switching from texting to audio calls, do make a lot of sense. Showing characters just typing the whole time would be really boring. Another thing I'm not a fan of is the character's acknowledgement of the narrator. Homestuck is a very meta story. Especially later in the line, there is quite a bit of fourth wall breaking. But the characters do not acknowledge the narrator. The main narrator of the comic is Andrew Hussey himself, who later appears as a character watching over everything unbeknownst to everyone. But never in the comic are the kids aware of or can interact with Hussey. Next up, probably the thing that people will make the most fun of, is the Vivzipop-isms, also known as cursing for no particular reason that is also really out of character. The kids do cuss quite a bit in the original comic. Dave specifically. In the pilot, much of it feels shoehorned in, especially when characters like John, who don't cuss an awful lot in the comic, cuss even more than Dave, who has the highest amount of cursing out of everyone in the source material, even more than Carcat. In the pilot, Dave says profanity 11 times, while John does 16 times. Jade and Rose do not have any instances of them saying curse words. People are already using the excuse that they're teenagers in 2009, of course they're going to say bad words. But the way they use profanity and the frequency is just out of character. I also felt that the strife between John and his dad was a bit silly and too dramatic. John's dad is supposed to be very tame, a really standard father that cares for his son. But because John is a teenager, he makes his dad out to be someone that just wants to annoy him. Making this fight seem very serious and anime-like loses this important detail. The strifes make a really average, normal interaction into something dramatic, which is funny because it's not. But in comparison to Bro, who is a genuinely abusive guardian and actually does beat the crap out of Dave, you can't tell the difference because John's strife with his dad is so exaggerated. I did enjoy this joke right here, though, of John leaving these two perfect sprite-accurate John-shaped holes in the wall. The animation of this fight is also insanely smooth. I also have another issue with one of the scenes not too far before this. John checks his mailbox and looks at his neighborhood, which is a remake of the S page on page 82. In the comic, it slowly zooms out with the loud sounds of wind and gentle chimes. It feels lonely, and it gives a moment of calm from the weirder stuff going on. In the pilot, the music is more mysterious and makes you wonder what will happen next. There's nothing wrong with this, but it's just a very different vibe from the original page, which is odd. Although it does annoy me that they make that joke of cutting off the narrator again before one of arguably the best quotes in Homestuck. "You have a feeling it's going to be a long day" is a great quote that subconsciously prepares the reader for the rest of the comic and allows a moment of rest now the protagonist has completed his first main goal, to get the Spur Beta. It gives you a sense that something big's going to change, you just don't know it yet. To cut this off with a frankly unfunny joke that's already been made before within 10 minutes is really unfortunate. I worry this may happen more in the future of the adaptation, prioritizing humor in the writing over things that are more genuine and meaningful to the characters and story. After this, when John goes inside to get his package, and Dave points out the meteor coming towards his house, as well as the comically large Homestuck logo, this part right here confused me a bit. The quick change from Dave yapping about the title drop to yelling at John about the meteor felt strange. There should have been more time for one of them to notice something's off before Dave is straight up yelling at him. It just felt like he didn't have any reaction beforehand. Additionally, when John looks at this arm floating in the sky here, I was unsure what this was meant to be. It looked like one of the fake arms maybe, but there's no reason for it to be up there. The only other thing I could think of was maybe it's future John using his retcon powers, but that brings up a whole slew of issues. I think that if they were to foreshadow the retcon this early, it would be okay, but really ambitious. But to put it here is weird. John wouldn't even have anything to do here. And John is in his god tier pajamas when he does the retcon, but this random arm is wearing a plain white long-sleeve shirt, it seems like. I have no clue what's going on here, honestly, and hopefully as the next episode comes out, whenever that happens, we'll get more clarity. Next up, voice acting. The voice acting was wonderful, actually. I wasn't a huge fan of Dave's voice, though. I've always imagined it deeper, even though that's just personal preference. It did feel, though, like the voice of the narrator was a bit too silly. Later in the series, when things get more serious, having this voice narrating may take away from the importance of certain events. But aside from those two grievances, everyone else's voice fits them wonderfully. When I heard Toby Fox would be voicing John, I laughed a bit, but now I couldn't imagine it any other way. I also really enjoyed Rose's voice. I always imagined her sounding like that. It fits perfectly. And to end everything off, the final scenes of the pilot were amazing. It's a great choice, showing what's to come and ramping up hype for the next episodes. The animation of these scenes here are stunning. Though I'm not too fond of the pilot as it is, I'm hoping that these issues will eventually be smoothed out for the future. I'm looking forward for what's next. If you, my lovely viewer, are not quite satisfied with the pilot the same way I am, I recommend checking out and supporting Project S. It's another Homestuck animated adaptation under a smaller studio that will be adhering closer to canon. They work slower than Spindlehorse, but currently they have the animatic of episode 1 posted to their channel, and a sneak peek of the animatic of episode 2. They've been at this for around 3 years now, and I'm much happier with the work I've seen from them so far than what we've seen from Spindlehorse. They recently posted a Patreon announcement, and they've got a Discord, so please go give their team some love. I'll put the link to their channel in the description. So, that's about all I've got to say. Thanks for listening to me yap for so long. This is my first video of this type, so it's not the best thing I've ever made, but I'm hoping to make more in the future, talking about different topics, maybe also some more Homestuck related videos. But thank you for your time. See ya!